Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here, Private Lenders Podcast. Thanks for checking out the show. All right, we want to talk to some new lenders today. Important topic, actually. And, to be honest, this doesn't apply so much to the people inside our mastermind group and all of that stuff because, for the most part, we're working with more seasoned and experienced lenders. But I'm sure there are a lot of new lenders, people who have done, 0 to 10 loans, call it, who listen to the show, watch the show, and also people who I see chatting inside Facebook groups. And man, I get a little worried for these people, to be honest. I see people taking a look at doing loans and they just don't have the knowledge base, the resources, skill set, all of that stuff to do it safely. I get a little worried because I don't want people to lose money. That's one of the reasons why we made the Mastermind group, this podcast right here. We do not want private lenders to lose money. We want them to do good deals. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Regardless. And even if you're newer, think about when we were new, when we wrote our first loan. We were terrified and we were cautious. Now, obviously, you don't know what you don't know, right? So everybody thinks that they're overly cautious. Everyone thinks every deal that they do is obviously a good one. But that being said, you're still nervous, right? You're still trying to do whatever you can so you can sleep well at night. And if that's not kind of the mentality that you have and you're kind of just fast and loose, be like, oh yeah, it's fine, everything will work out. That's not the right attitude to have, to be a lender of your own money, or especially a lender of someone else's money that you're controlling. That's just a recipe for disaster, because if truth be told, even if you're very cautious and you're conservative and you're doing, the best deals that you think you can be doing, there's still things to learn. And this is an ongoing education process. It's learning. And we're seeing deals that have gone through defaults and, maybe even the foreclosure process. And we're like, oh, wow, that's even new to us. And, we've been involved in 4,000 plus private loans, and we've had contested foreclosures in every state that we've lent in. And we've had a lot of other hard money mastermind students and clients talk to us as well about stuff. So we've seen a lot. I can't say we've seen it all because we haven't, but we've seen a lot, and we're learning, and, hopefully, after, the stuff that you hear, you won't make the same mistakes that we had to in the past. So let's go to number one of the 3 common mistakes a newer lender makes. You want to do number one? Want me to do number one?
No, I'll jump in on number one. So first of all, we debated what the 3 should be, because these could be broken out into many different ones. And of course, there's more than just 3, but we wanted to hit the most important stuff to give people the most amount of value for taking their time to listen or watch us. So super common one amongst private lenders who are newer, they go to meetup groups, they network with people online, stuff like that, is that they think they have to do every deal that is sent to them. Some investor that you come across at the meetup group says, here's what I'm doing. It's a rehab. It's, not far from where we are right now in our home market. Here's what the numbers are. And the lender goes, well, that's the only deal I have to look at. I have no other lead flow. I should probably do it. Right?
Recipe for disaster. And then all of a sudden you do that deal, and chances are it's 100% financing. They're asking you for cheaper terms. You turn into a sucker, and you're doing you're the cheapest lender in town, and you're giving somebody 100% financing. Recipe for disaster that you will lose on in enough time.
Think about the dynamic of that one. That is, in essence, a real estate investor, a flipper in that example, setting all the terms. The borrower setting the terms instead of the lender. They're saying, hey, if you can bring $200K on this deal, it'll be $150 for acquisition, $50 for construction. I'll pay $10,000 in closing costs, something like that, and I can pay you 12%. It'll accrue during the term of the loan, and once I sell it, you'll get your principal back plus the 12% interest for the amount of time it was outstanding. And the lender's like, oh, all right, sounds good. I'm making 12% annual. But in no type of lending does the borrower set the terms. Not with a bank, not with a private lender, not with a life co, whatever kind of lender. The lender sets the terms, the guidelines, the leverage, all the important stuff to protect the lender's interests. They don't just say, all right, as long as I'm getting my rate of return, you go ahead and pick the guidelines, pick the terms, whatever you want.
Big mistake. We see it all the time. Lenders are giving 100% financing, or they're deferring payments, or sometimes they're even fronting construction money up front for the borrower to do everything they want. And the issue with that is, as you continue to do deals, you always do deals like that because your borrower is like, hey, I just want the same terms as before. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Oh, hey, now my friend has a deal. He wants to do it the same terms. Of course, you're going to grow as a lender doing bad deals like that because you're the cheapest lender in town and you're giving the highest leverage. That is a recipe for disaster. And I think, newer lenders, they'll come in and they'll do some deals like that. Then they'll look back, they'll be like, oh crap, like I need to tighten up a little bit because this isn't smart. And they're scared to do it because guess what happens? You got to lose those borrowers, or you have to renegotiate with those borrowers in order to do so. So you're going to take a step backwards before you're going to take 2 steps and then eventually 10 steps forward. So it's a little bit scary to do it. Don't put yourself in that position. Spend resources on marketing and finding opportunities and doing deals, because the way you look at it is if Chris talks to 10 people this week and I talk to 50 people this week, who's going to have a better deal, right? Chances are I'm going to have a better deal just because it's a sheer numbers game. I'm talking to more real estate investors. I have more opportunities. I can cherry pick the better of the deal. So don't do every deal that comes to you. Be very, very cautious. And I think most experienced lenders who've been in the game long enough can attest to this.
All right, number 2. You want to jump in on this one?
We talking about underwriting?
No.
Is that number 2 or attorneys?
Do the attorney stuff. And then we'll finish with a good amount of underwriting.
So a very common mistake that newer lenders and experienced lenders make is not using an attorney to do their loan documents and their title review. A very, very, very important thing. Like, we're not attorneys. Chances are you as a lender is not an attorney. Even if you are an attorney, you're maybe not be a specialized attorney. There's 2 sides of this. There's loan docs and title review. The loan doc stuff, our legal docs from our attorney change on a regular basis. Different things are occurring. Different laws are changing. There's contested foreclosures that eventually happen. And then it's like, okay, maybe we got to rewrite it this way or change this or change that. So besides the fact of them doing the heavy lifting and actually doing this on your behalf, this is real legal work. It's real legal work. It's not just, hey, let's just get a doc set, from an attorney and let's just do it, or make my own doc set and do it. Like, these are real legal docs that change on a regular basis. And chances are, wherever you're lending, there's lots of different variations. You might lend to a personal name on an investment property. It might be an entity. It might be 2 entities. It might have 1 guarantor, 2 guarantors. You might be lending to a corporation. You might be lending to a trust. There's lots of different variations. There might be cross collateral, and one person owns this collateral, the other person owns this LLC. Who's the borrower? Who's the guarantor? Right? Like, there's lots of different variations and lots of different doc sets. Hey, what docs need to be notarized? What docs don't need to be notarized? I mean, listen, Chris and I have been around enough deals that we know what doc set goes for each deal, but we're certainly not doing that. And it has nothing to do with time or money. It has to do that we need an attorney to represent us and the capital lender if we're not the actual investor on that deal. And let's be honest, it's probably a pretty good idea if you're using investor capital to probably have an attorney do that. So you're not, representing your capital investor who you're also using their capital to invest in your deals with.
Yeah, I want to add a couple more things to this. Like, one, first of all, guys, you can't have the title company do your loan docs. I know there's a lot of people listening to this right now that are saying, oh yeah, I have an attorney do it. The title attorney handles it. They do a mortgage and a note for me. Okay. A title attorney has a very, very clear conflict of interest in terms of doing your loan docs. So they don't, as the lender, they don't represent you. Any title company represents their title insurer. Their job is to get the most favorable policy for the lender's policy and for the owner's policy for the person buying the property. So they're in conflict with you. Like, when our attorney is negotiating with a title company for the title insurance, they are asking for stuff that are in our favor, the lender's favor, that the title company may or may not want to give. It's a negotiation. So to have the title company do your policy and not have it negotiated at all just because they can do a note and a mortgage for you is a very clear conflict of interest. So be careful there. And also, even it's important to have attorneys that are familiar with loan docs in that state. We were talking to earlier this week a lender who is in the Mastermind group, and he's actually doing our 2-day intensive training in April. And he was saying that he had an out-of-state attorney do a Ohio loan doc set for him. They missed one checkbox, one line that was supposed to go into that doc set about the confession of judgment. And lo and behold, that loan went into default and he could not get a confession of judgment. He could still foreclose. He was fine. He did well in the deal, but he couldn't get the confession of judgment because one line of the note was missed. So look, it just goes to show you. And that was an attorney who prepared that. It was just someone out of state, not familiar with Ohio lending laws. Just goes to show you. This attorney stuff, I know we harp on it, pretty frequently, but that's because it's important and because we see what happens in some sticky legal situations related to defaults. And that's why we know it's so important.
Yeah. I mean, same with title review.
And title review, absolutely.
There's a lot of lenders that are doing doc prep, but then their lenders or their attorneys aren't helping them with title review. Title review is challenging. Do you know everything that's stated on a commitment? Do you know that you can negotiate with the title company on every commitment that they provide? When we get our bare bones title commitment that in essence is in the title insurer's favor, our attorneys do title review. They go through it and they mark up that whole darn page and they say,
they sure do.
We don't want a policy with any exceptions. Correct. We didn't get a survey, but take this survey exception out. And guess what? Most of the title companies will do it, even without a survey on the lender's title insurance policy. They might not on the owner's title insurance policy, but we're the lender, so it doesn't matter on that. Also, on your lender's title policy, do you ask for 120% title insurance coverage? Some states will let you do that. Some states won't. About 90% of the loans that we do, we're able to negotiate to get that in. So what does that mean? Well, it's like, well, why do I need title insurance for more than the value of my loan? Well, guess what? When are you going to do a title claim? Typically, if the borrower is in default. If the borrower is not in default and you get paid off, you don't need a title claim. But let's say the borrower is in default and there's a title issue and you have a title claim. Well, if they're in default, they're not making payments. You're accruing interest. You have attorney fees. Well, guess what? If you have a title claim, the max you're going to collect is the premium amount, or is the amount of your loan amount. But if you do 120%, you potentially can get more than that. That covers interest and other incurred costs. Very important.
Legal fees. Yeah.
Number 3, not underwriting your loans correctly. If you're a hard money lender and you're lending someone else's money or your own, you're an underwriter. That's important. There's lots of roles and hats that you play in this business, but let's be honest. Underwriting is probably one of the most important. You need to protect your interest and make sure you're only writing good loans. And we talk to too many lenders where I'll say, "Oh, well, how are you guys coming up with your values?" And I'm looking at them like, "What do you mean? We are on MLS comping properties every day. We're either, we went to every single property inspection for 5 years straight until we hired someone into our office or found a third party to help us represent us. Met with every single borrower." Right? We've always talked about the 4 C's: collateral, character, capacity, and credit. That's what we do. That's what we underwrite, and we don't, defer from that stuff. We're doing that stuff every day. We're underwriting these files, and we're spending time to make sure it's a good loan that we want to a good person we want to lend to.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a job number 1 in this business as a lender, it's knowing the value of the collateral you're lending against. Knowing it, right? An appraisal's okay. That's a third party. It can be helpful. BPO, inspection. Those things can be helpful, but you yourself have to be comfortable with what is the value of this collateral I'm lending against. That's what keeps the risk level where you need it. When we talk to lenders in the Mastermind group, man, this makes me cringe when people are like, we'll ask, well, how'd you determine the value of this property? They said, oh, the borrower sent me some comps. I'm like, makes me cringe and sigh like that. The borrower sent you some comps. Clear conflict of interest. Come on, guys. That's not being an underwriter. The borrower is going to send you whatever comps make his deal look better, his or her deal. If the property is worth, 300 ARV, they could very well send you 320, 350 comps, and which can really throw out of whack your level of risk as a lender. So that's just talking about collateral. We're going to get into some borrower financial stuff too.
Yeah. I mean, so we talked about the 4 C's. Like, that's the order that we go off of. Collateral, obviously, be most important, and then character. I mean, there's too many instances that overall the project looks like it's a fine project and it's definitely a good piece of collateral, but the characteristics of the borrower are piss poor, and we just can't do that deal. If they're not sophisticated real estate investors, if they're just not good humans, if they're hard to communicate with, like, you just can't do that deal. It's a high likelihood that it's going to default, and it's a high likelihood that it's going to be a huge headache. And depending on where you live and how hard the foreclosure process or the judgment process is, it could be challenging, to deal with a crazy borrower, even if it's like $100,000 loan on $1 million property, right? It still might not necessarily mean it's a good deal. Just collateral is strong, and going to capacity and talking about financials. Like, listen, you don't have to necessarily get tax returns and W-2s and all this other stuff, but you do need to verify that the borrower has the ability to perform on the loan and has the means to do so. Get a bank statement or an asset statement, even if it's not a full statement. Get a screenshot that shows they have enough cash to close, maybe some reserves, cash if they go over the construction budget, cash to make enough monthly payments. Every once in a while we'll ask for additional stuff, some additional financial stuffs. Maybe it's like, hey, like, this deal's right borderline. It'd be nice if they had, a retirement account with like $100,000 in it. That would help as like a compensating factor to push this deal strong enough to do, right? And cool. It's like, okay, that makes us feel a little bit better that they have additional means to cur the loan if they run into problems. There's no rules of right or wrong of what you can get, what you can't get. If you want tax returns, get tax returns. There's commercial deals that we'll get tax returns on. Sometimes there's residential deals where, the deal doesn't seem to make sense, but then we dig into financials and it does make sense, right? So you can get what you want on it, and we'll talk about credit here in a second, because that's more important than I think folks think.
Yeah. So let's jump into that part. If we want to keep it simple with borrower financials, let's just go with an asset statement, like Jason was saying, a bank statement showing the cash. If they also want to show a brokerage account or whatever it is in addition, cool. The more the better. Plus a credit report. And let's talk about credit reports for a second, because, all right, so if you just do that, if you just get a current bank statement and a recent credit report, you're doing pretty well as a private lender. You're doing okay. You're doing better than many people I see chatting online. So credit reports. Not everyone can pull a credit report as a lender. You have to get approved by credit reporting agencies to do so. There are other ways around it. Like, there is the annual credit reports a borrower can pull on their own without it even hitting them as a hard pull. Maybe they already have one. Hopefully they it's not uncommon for a real estate investor who's actively buying and selling properties to have a recent credit report of their own. That's fine. That's not bad. We pull our own. We're a professional lender. We are signed up to do so. It's part of our loan file. But even if you look at one that they have on their own, and maybe it's not even a tri-merge, not all 3 credit bureaus, maybe it's one, that's still better than doing nothing, which is what we're trying to avoid here. Like, if they have one, it's Equifax, it shows they have a 730 credit score, not bad. You can see their trade lines, see their home mortgage, maybe they got a car payment, credit card or two, and you see that they're not paying everyone late. Good. That's good. Also, at the same time, if you notice that the borrower, when you ask for this stuff, say that you're not set up to pull it on your own, you ask for a credit report and they give all kinds of excuses. No, I can't. I don't know how to get it. I don't have it. Red flag, right? Like, you ask for something, it's pretty straightforward, pretty common. It's not pretty common, it's incredibly common. Every lender is asking for a credit report or pulling on their own. And if they're giving you all kinds of runaround, that's a red flag. That takes a ding against the character if we're going back to 4 C's. If they're trying to give you the runaround, it seems like they're BSing you on something about bank statements, about credit reports. That's starting to give you an indication that maybe this is not the right person to be in business with.
Yeah. I agree. And listen, this is very easy scripting to ask for some of that information. Be like, hey, listen, I'm a private lender. I lend my own money. We're super easy to deal with. We're very, very quick. I need a few really small documents. Doesn't have to be anything official. Send me over this, send me over that. We'll put it all together. I'll get this deal done for you really quickly, really easy. And you just kind of explain it to the borrower that it's a real simple process and it shouldn't be overwhelming. And, out of every deal we've ever done, 4,000 of them plus, no one's complained because you present it the right way. Mm-hmm. Right? They're not like, oh, well, you told me, you never get tax returns. It's like, hey, listen, I want to keep this easy for you. I don't want to micromanage you. You don't want us to micromanage you on these deals. It's going to be a very simple deal. We're going to fund it. We'll get it closed as promised tomorrow or the next day. If you can just show me one of these, we'll make it easy. And you just kind of just be very simple about it. And people are fine. Like, no problem. I just want to make sure you have enough cash to get through this deal. I don't want to put you in a situation where, you can't afford the payment, or I don't want to put you in a situation where you're stuck into this deal at a higher interest rate. It doesn't make sense. So it's just easier if we get it all taken care of on the front end.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out the show. We, like I started with before, like I see people chatting on social media in different groups, aspiring private lenders, people who want to earn that double-digit rate of return. And based on some of these conversations, I get really nervous for these folks because I don't want them to lose money. And based on what they're saying and like showing their lack of knowledge about what they're doing, I worry that people are going to lose money doing these deals. If we can prevent a few people from losing $1 by making this show, then that is obviously well worth it. Hopefully you got some value from this. We do appreciate you checking this out, listening to it wherever you get your podcasts or watching YouTube. And until the next show, we will see everyone inside hardmoneymastermind.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.